All right. I think we are up and running here.
Are we? We're live?
Yes, I
Great.
believe so. I think we're going to. I'll I'll see if anybody pops in here and just kind of verify. But I'm pretty sure we're up. I'll bring up the. Yeah, yeah. I think we're good to go here.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah, Sam. Sam is Sam's in the chat. What's up, Sam?
Hey, Tom.
So yeah.
Welcome.
Welcome everyone to another Animbreak episode video interview here, and this is episode 6, and we are. I'm talking to senior animator Chris. Is it Goodall or Goodell?
Yeah, Goodall.
Goodall, Chris Goodall, senior animator at Ninja Theory. And where's Ninja Theory at? Up over in England?
It's in Cambridge in the UK.
Okay, cool. And you know the whole purpose of these interviews is kind of get to know some game animators that whose work I love and want to kind of chat with them and I think people would want to hear from. So for anyone who hasn't checked it out, Chris has he's got his work on Vimeo. We'll loop through it here, but he's got his work on Vimeo and Twitter and stuff like that, and really cool stuff on Hellblade, and I want to get into that as well. But the whole kind of crux of this stuff of this interview is like, you know, telling, you know, professionals and students kind of how everyone kind of broke into the industry, and everyone kind of takes certain paths. So, Chris, you want to talk about kind of how you broke in?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, forgive me if I ramble on a little bit about this.
No.
Right, so, I mean, my journey started the same as, I guess, the majority of animators. I saw Toy Story, I saw Jurassic Park. I was like, wow, I want to do that, like whatever that thing is that I watched. Apparently, it's a job and you can do it. So, yeah, I mean, I was always kind of like really into art and drawing and stuff as a kid. And but yeah, I don't know. I kind of set myself on this path of, okay, I kind of just want to go in this area. All I knew all I knew was that it was just computers and art, and I didn't know anything else. So, yeah, I mean, I went through school, studied some art at college, and then decided that I found like it was at the University of Bradford. It was a computer animation and special effects course where they kind of taught you a bit of everything. That I would say is quite generalist. It was I was still figuring out at that point that what I wanted to be. Like, you start figuring out that you can be a modeler, or you can be an effects artist, or you can do animation, or like, and going to university and doing that kind of course is a great way to figure out, like, just try everything.
So was it a course or was it a program that was general, kind of general CG?
I chose it because it had animation in the title. I was like, okay, I kind of want to do that, but I ended up doing a lot of other things. It's like, to get to the animation part, you have to be able to model and rig and texture, and then you create this horrible rig. It's like, cool, well, now let's do some animation. And obviously that's terrible as well. So that's kind of how it.
Was this in Cambridge?
No, so this was in Bradford. It's like in like the middle of England.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit.
So you just decided to go to kind of a local school where you grew up, and they happen to have a animation program.
Well, no, I'm actually from a city called Sheffield, and they didn't have anything anything to do with computer animation or anything like that there. So I had to find the nearest university, and there were basically 2 I could go to. So yeah, I picked that one, and yeah. So I guess towards the end of my course, I realized that my work was terrible. Having put my first demo reel together and seeing what was out there, I was like,
was that a self-realization, or? Yeah.
I realized before finishing my short film, and I was like, oh, what am I going to do about this?
So was that, sorry to kind of belabor it, but like you were kind of finishing it up, and then you like because I've the reason I ask is I've had that moment too in school, and it's like,
Yeah.
were you kind of just like looking online or and just kind of came across stuff and you're like, wait, this doesn't align with or miss or match.
Yeah, I think first of all, I kind of compared my final year like student project, my animation project, to some that were done like by just other students and years before and stuff like that. And I was like, why is that stuff so good? Like, what we've gone through the same course. Like, what did they do that I didn't do? And like, and it's not that I wasn't trying or anything. Like, I really worked hard and just trying to learn how to do this thing.
Right. Why do you think that? I mean, I might be jumping ahead, but like, you're working hard on it and stuff like that. Like, looking back on it, why do you think that? Like, you weren't hitting what you wanted to hit. Was it, the instruction, the
Yeah,
just...
I think, yeah, I think it was a mixture of things. Like I said, it's kind of like it was quite generalist. So like, had it just been focusing on animation, like then I would have spent, 2 years just animating basically.
Yeah.
So I got little animation time anyway. And when I did, it was with a horrible setup. I never used a proper rig before. Like, I've just set up my own IK controllers and things are flipping out everywhere and just, yeah, it was terrible. And also I didn't really know anything about animation principles. Like we had a really short class that lasted maybe like a month or so. It's like, hey, here are the 12 principles of animation, go and look at them. And I was like, okay, cool. There's this list and I don't know what any of these mean or how to implement them.
I see. So was the teacher like, because some schools like the teacher teaches like modeling, texturing, rigging, animation. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was that. Like,
okay.
It's basically this whole thing. And so, yeah, after realizing my work was bad, I had my first reel together, which I didn't release on the internet, probably for the best. And so I left university, graduated. I got a good grade. Like on paper, it was great, but you need a good reel to get a job. Yeah. So I decided that I would just work. I thought I would get a part-time job, and then I was just going to work, 3-4 days a week, just on animating. And so I was online. I listened to every podcast. I signed up to everything, all the websites. I was just getting as much information as possible. And I remember finding the I can't remember what they're called. There's this. I remember watching a set of tutorials. Keith Langer. Langer tutorials. I remember finding those.
Yep.
And that was the day that I learned about arcs. And so I remember like I had like the acetate plastic sheet on my screen, and I was marking out with the pen, like, oh, draw an arc like this.
Yep.
And then I matched up to it, and then I played the animation back. I was like, wow, it's so smooth. Like that's how they do it. Like I really remember like learning arcs like very specifically. It's so funny.
Nice.
So I spent so I graduated in 2008. So from 2008 through to like late 2009, I just spent time working on a reel, which I sent out to a few places. I didn't really get much response. Like I went for like an interview at a VFX company in Sheffield, but I don't know, they're closed now. Like okay. They don't last very long. So like it was, I don't know, it was a bit weird. And yeah, I think I applied to Frontier as well, which is another company in Cambridge, and I got like an animation test, but I didn't pass. I was like, I had to use the biped rig, and I use Maya usually. Oh, and the biped rig's in 3D Max. It's like, hey, do you know how to use 3D Max? I'm like, maybe. So they sent me a test, and I was like, I don't know how to do any of this. So yeah, basically, I just applied further and further away from my hometown, and then one day I was listening to a podcast, and it was the Reanimators podcast. I don't know if you
yes. Shout out to Mike Jungbluth and Ryan Duffin. I love that. I mean, I used to listen to it all the time.
Yeah, it's great. Mm-hmm. And so one day I was listening to this podcast, and they had a guest on called Espen, and Espen worked at Ninja Theory. I was like, Ninja Theory. I've never heard of them. So I went online, found the website, and careers. Okay, go through. Oh, they're doing an internship. Great. I'll just apply for this. So I applied for the Ninja Theory animation internship. And
okay.
within 2 weeks, they got back to me, and
Wow.
they offered me a position. It was crazy.
Yeah,
Just
that's cool.
happened overnight like that. So yeah,
And
I
then without a
started.
test, it was just straight up offer of an internship.
Yeah, well, the thing was like it was initially for 3 months, so I guess it's kind of like a 3 month test.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, like,
Makes sense. Yeah.
it's great. And so I went for in my interview, like they showed me it's kind of like the pitch for Enslaved,
Okay.
what they were pitching to publishers, and like it was this awesome, like CG, like totally animated, like a minute or two, like maybe I think it was 2 minutes. I know it was a couple of minutes, but it was like a big cinematic piece, just
Nice.
awesome stuff going on. And I watched it, I was like, wow. And like I remember like Monkey, like there's the character Monkey and Enslaved. I just remember this like back shot of him, and like all the muscles were flexing and stuff, and I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Nice.
I want to learn how to, like, I want to work here. So I went from not knowing Ninja Theory at all, like I never played Heavenly Sword, and then I went for the interview and saw this, and I was like, wow, this is what I want to do. This is great.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I did a 3 month internship, and then towards the end, so we were a group of 7. So we were 7 animation interns, which all started at the
Oh
same time.
wow.
We lived in the same house.
Oh
Like
wow.
the company had paid for this big house for us, so it was like this weird like university
Yeah.
thing going on. And then after 3 months, they decided that hey, we want to actually keep 4 of you for another 3 months. And then so 3 people had to leave. So it's like this weird elimination thing
Right.
where
Yeah.
4 of us
Voted out
stayed
of the
in
house.
same
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
And everything's being recorded.
yeah. So we did this
Yeah.
another
That's
3 months, and during that time I got to that. Well, when I started, I learned that they were doing DMC Devil May Cry in like the other wing, and I'm a fan of this game as well. Like I played the original, but
Yeah.
it never even occurred to me that I'd be able to work on something like this in the UK.
right. Yeah.
I thought that I would have to go to Japan or something.
Yeah.
And, and there it was. I was like, wow. It's like, okay, whatever happens, like I have to get a job here because I know I'm going to be missing out on working on this project.
Yeah.
It would haunt me forever.
Yeah. Oh man, that was I gotta say, like the DMC that you guys did is like one of my like top 5 favorite games. I just love
Oh,
that
really?
game. Yeah, it was
Oh, wow.
amazing game. I mean, Enslaved was awesome, and yeah, but DMC was amazing. Yeah, and it's funny because you like you said, you just wouldn't think that outside of Japan you would have a chance to work on that kind of IP. So
No, yeah, it was really cool. So then, yeah, after the extra 3 months, I got hired along with another of the interns, and yeah, I went through the whole production of mostly I went through production on Enslaved, so I got to see the whole process of putting the game together as like a junior, and then I moved on to DMC. So it was those are like really great experiences.
yeah. Those are some those are some great games to cut your teeth on, right? Introduction to the industry.
I've been very fortunate.
Oh, that's cool. And then I guess so you kind of, I guess you started at Ninja Theory, and that's kind of been your home ever since.
Yeah, like I don't know any different.
How far was Ninja, like how far was Sheffield from
Yeah.
like where you were?
It's like I think it's like 130 miles. It's basically 2 hours in a car.
Okay,
It's a 2 hour car ride.
Yeah, pretty close, all things
I
considered.
mean, England's pretty small. I mean, compared to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
US. So.
Um, no, that's the whole internship thing. That's really interesting. It's like because it went from 7 interns to 2 that got hired, right?
Yeah, and actually the thing is like that kind of internship is so unheard of. Like and
Mm-hmm.
it was a paid internship as well, which is just like everything I'd learned up until that point. You know, if you wanted to be an intern, you had to go and work for free, or you needed to volunteer at a company, or like
Mm-hmm.
you read about the whole. I've read all about the VFX stories of you have like runners and things who just make the
Right.
coffee and they do things, and then you know in after hours they spend some time in Maya, like learning to animate and stuff, and then they get hired, and then
Yeah.
I kind of thought that this was like a viable option or path. And I
Yeah.
never thought that you would be paid to be an intern. It's like, wow, this is really good.
And it sounds like they kind of just threw everyone into the fire and just
Yeah.
you do it or you sink or swim kind of thing. And you guys doing some heavy production work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we immediately just started working on the game. I mean, even as interns, we were doing work for the game. Like they didn't just give us any arbitrary thing to do to just learn animation. Like we were creating assets,
Mm-hmm.
and that in itself, I was like, well, if I don't get this job, I have my credit in a game, and I've put an
Yeah.
animation in a game already. It's like that's already such a good opportunity.
Yeah. What kind of like that's interesting because you're seeing so many test cases in one at one time. Like usually it's like 1 or 2 interns, but having 7 interns, like what? I guess maybe this might be helpful for people that want to potentially look for an internship. Like because you saw 6 other people and you had your own experience. Like what? Do you remember any kind of like struggles or kind of interesting things that in like that people were kind of dealing with as they were trying to like you know, because obviously everyone's trying to stick, right? Everyone's trying to, like,
Yeah.
even if you aren't trying to stick, you're trying to get some good shots, good experience, and stuff like that. But
Mm,
yeah,
yeah. Well, it was very interesting to watch actually because we were not all the same age group either. Like
mm,
there were a few older. So we come from all different backgrounds. Like some were fresh out of university. Like I'd graduated a year prior to that, and yeah, just seeing everyone's kind of path reveal itself and the skills sets that they gravitate towards and the
mm,
things they kind of like to do, and everyone sort of became like their own like kind of like their own person, like their styles kind of starting to develop.
mm,
Like I was always into like the big like cinematic thing. I was always trying to bite off more than I could chew. Like, multiple characters, like just trying to like just maybe trying to show off or something. I don't know. Like I really wanted to stay. But yeah, it was really interesting to see how people responded and watching other people kind of grow and things. But it sounds like it could be quite competitive. Actually, there was a very good bond between us because we were all doing the same thing, and there was a really good like team mentality, like
mm,
team vibe, and the fact that we were all living together as well, like it made a big difference.
yeah,
Like I really got into playing Street Fighter as well at that point because we used to play Street Fighter like in the main room in in our house, and
uh-huh.
like that just brought us all together as well. Like this, we took our competition out there and not with the job.
Yeah. There you go. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah,
um, yeah. No, that's no, that's really interesting story. It's like the group of interns, but
yeah,
um, thanks for sharing the breaking in story. I think there's when I posted this, I got some really interesting questions from people, and we could there's quite a few questions. So if you wanna jump into it, we totally can. Um, I
yeah. I mean,
put you on the hot seat, but
yeah, sure. Far away.
so let's see here. I know there was let's see here. I'm gonna refresh this. I want to make sure I get to the earlier questions first, but let's see here. Well, let's jump into the question that I see right now, which is Steve Hawthorne says, "Hey, fellow animator from England here. May I ask, yeah, hey Steve, when did your interest in fight mechanics begin?"
I think when I joined the company, I was going to say, I wonder if also us playing Street Fighter was part of that. Like,
Yeah.
like I just wanted to add that in there. I don't know. Like when I joined, like there's some ridiculous talent. There was some ridiculous talent at the studio, you know, and so they were doing awesome combat stuff. So imagine joining with little experience and seeing the awesome stuff people are doing. Like, wow, like I want to do that. Mm-hmm. So I was really inspired by the work of other people, and obviously Ninja Theory is very combat oriented. So it's kind of the legacy of the studio. It's what they do. So I really have no choice, I guess, other than to embrace it. But I loved doing it. I love the physicality of like body mechanics and yeah, I mean, to answer his question,
yeah. So
from starting at the studio and just being inspired by others.
For me, it's always like Ninja Theory is like I'm like a Ninja Theory fanboy. So basically, anything Ninja Theory puts out, I just pick up sight unseen. But like the thing that I love about the work there is that like it is very combat heavy, and it almost has like a house style in the way you guys do things. I mean, you guys vary up the animation style from game to game as well, but specifically with DMC, like it was just so well done. Like I just loved like the movement and the combat and everything. Like was that sparked from like previous iterations of Devil May Cry, or because it was kind of like a newish character, and like you guys got to kind of got to blaze like a whole new kind of story path in it. Like was there somebody there that really kind of keeps the animation quality in line, or was that something that evolved as people kept playing around with
Yeah. So I mean, there's a definite homage to the other DMC games. Like a lot of Dante's moves and things are very recognizable from other games. Like he's got a very specific style that we had to maintain, I guess. I mean, honestly, like I didn't really do much combat work on DMC at all. I did a lot of like mechanics work and things, but a lot of the combat work was done by an animator called James Marajan. Okay. And also Ricky Wood was the guy who kept the quality of the project together. Like, those guys are really talented animators.
Cool.
And I guess there's a lot of feedback from Capcom as well. So Capcom want to see specific things. And I think the studio learned a lot from working with Capcom and how to do combat. And, Capcom were very, from what I understand, they were just very involved with the whole process, making sure everything felt right, it looked right.
Yeah, that's their baby. So
yeah,
cool. So, yeah, no, that's cool. I think I love Ricky Wood's his work. It's amazing. So I could totally see that. So there's some questions from when I first posted. I want to get to those, and this one's from Aaron Skinner. Hey Aaron, this is
hey.
He says it's kind of a two-parter, so I'll get to the first one, which is assuming the Anim team size was tiny on Hellblade. What are some of the challenges when working with such a lean animation team on a project like Hellblade, and how you kind of overcome those challenges?
Okay.
You know what
I
I'm going to do?
guess
I'm going to loop some of the Hellblade stuff because I think it's really cool to see here. So, let's see here. All right.
okay.
Yeah, go for
So
it.
sorry. So to answer the question,
I guess how many animators were on Hellblade?
well, so initially we were two. It was me and another animator called GTech,
Okay.
and we were doing a lot of things. And then, like, our main focus throughout was kind of combat, but then we need to do traversal animation and things like this. So we had two others for a while, and then it shrunk down again. So the biggest challenge, I think, when the anim team is so small is the fact that you just have to it's not just about animation anymore. Like for instance, when I'm doing work, like it's not finished for me until it's in the game and it's working. Like I have to know the whole like animation pipeline, how to implement things, like how the animation network works, be able to make them, and like just like it's literally do everything from receiving the rig all the way up to it. Yeah, just being in game. Unless I hit a block at some point where I need a programmer to translate what I've made in the anim graph into something a little bit more efficient, or I'm just physically out of my depth. Like, you know, I've crossed over into another discipline. So the biggest challenge actually is being more technically minded and not focusing just on animation. Like you have to really expand your skill set into like actual game development and not just being an animator. Yeah, so that can be a very, very intimidating thing to think about. Like if you're not very technically minded and you have to tackle situations like that, like it seems like such a big mountain to climb. Like learning an engine, and you know all the difficulties you can have, all the things that can go wrong. Like, yeah, that's definitely the biggest challenge. And just trying to be efficient. Like when there's two or three of you, or you know, you just have to make the best choices you can make all the time. There's no time to waste trying things out. And I think having a good understanding of the pipeline allows you to make better choices because you know how it's going to work in the engine when it comes together. So you can start creating a mechanic with the full understanding of, yeah, like how it works. And so it really stops any back and forth between, basically there are no blocks. Like it's up to you and you can do everything. And like, yeah, it's way more streamlined that way.
And like, what you mentioned, what was the extent of like, were you in terms of like before animation, were you guys getting into the rigging stuff as well?
Oh no, no, not really. I think there's times where we've done like small little environment rigs where, like maybe doors opening or like an interaction with an object or like just something like that where we can have some control with rigging. But generally, no, we don't do any character rigs or anything like that.
Okay. A lot of the kind of extending yourself beyond just animation was kind of after the animation, like getting in Unreal and setting up the anim graphs and trees and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know, you mentioned like somebody who's not technically minded or just unfamiliar in general with that process. Like how did you get over the hump of really diving in to that stuff?
Well, I actually quite enjoy the technical side. And I know there's something bizarrely satisfying in knowing that you can animate something and then do this technical stuff and it works. And like the technical side is less subjective than animation. You know, either it works or it doesn't, and it's kind of nice. It's satisfying in itself. So I've always kind of warmed to it. And I don't know, I always felt it was necessary to learn. And just through doing it, basically just getting in there and like just giving it a go.
Yeah.
I learned more from just doing it and trying things out than actually studying or reading about it.
Okay. Yeah. That's good. That's good advice. So the second part of that question is when jumping between stylistically different projects, like say Disney Infinity to Hellblade, how do you adjust from animating one in one style to another?
So it's weird. Like there was a stylistic change down into Infinity because we'd done DMC and some like other stuff that translating that style down into Disney Infinity, like those style of characters. It's weird, like when you're kind of working on more hyperreal stuff or things which are not realistic but closer to realistic than super stylized, it kind of translates quite nicely down into a stylized character because the mechanics end up being really solid, but you can also then push things further rather than the other way around, where if you're used to working on really stylized stuff and then you want to start doing realistic animation, at least for me, yeah, I find that way is much easier. And so an example of this actually is moving from Infinity to Hellblade. So, and also interestingly, there was a style choice. A style change within Hellblade because we had two different versions of Senua.
Oh,
our original version of Senua was much more stylized and kind of maybe what you would expect from Ninja Theory. Like, she was much closer to Dante.
oh okay.
And this style than what we ended up with. So we did a bunch of animation, like combat and things for this original version of Senua. And when we translated it over to the more realistic one, it was just too fast. Like everything we did was just way too fast. And so learning to slow things down and give them the proper time they need to fit the style of the character and the game. Like, that was just endless iteration. And also looking at motion capture a lot really helped put us in the correct frame of mind to kind of really train your eye to see what realistic looks like. So then, I found looking at motion capture was really helpful in translating our style from something a bit more stylized into something a bit more realistic.
Yeah. What I love about the Hellblade stuff is that it feels really heavy. It feels fast but heavy. And do you have any kind of like thoughts or tips on like how to achieve that kind of feel? And because that's a really hard thing to achieve in combat. And you did mention kind of like sometimes you got to take your time and that's part of it. But yeah, if you have any.
Yeah, I think you've done a bunch of combat work, so you can probably relate to this. It's knowing where you can it's knowing where to sell the action. Like if you only have like from pressing a button, maybe you've got 10 frames or less until the strike point, like in an attack, then you can only do so much before that strike, and then you have to really sell it at the end. So it's kind of like removing the anticipation, but putting it at the end of the animation. So just showing like, hey, here's what the character did. I know it was super quick, but your mind kind of fills in the different, like kind of fills in the blank.
Yeah,
it's always the fight between response and how pretty you want it to look, right?
Yeah, it's like taking the stuff from the front load and kind of putting in the back load and still making it feel good. It's always an interesting challenge. So.
So like lots of follow through and like really selling. Yeah, it's selling the weight at the end is like, I think that's where you make the difference. Yeah,
that's there's a lot of games that do that really well, right? That kind of like you have a huge weapon and you get to the hit frame like by frame 5, but then you let your saddle hang for like 2 seconds and it just feels heavy, even though this weapon just moves super quick. Yeah, it's a nice tip. So this question's from Tyler Anthony. What's up,
Okay.
Tyler?
Hey, Tyler.
What's your work and thought process for animating a creature that doesn't exist? As an example, he said some of the demons from Devil May Cry, but even some of those characters from Hellblade as well. So
Yeah. Um, so first of all, I guess it's just looking at the physiology of the character. If it's similar to any kind of creature or animal that we have, often, often when you see these fantasy creatures and things like, they are usually composed of like different animals or things you can relate to, like for instance in the Hellblade stuff, I did the quadruped Fenrir, and he's like part boar, part wolf, and like with some other mixtures in there. So yeah, I'll just look at reference for these different animals and see what I can take from each one.
oh, you're talking
Also,
about the one, this guy?
yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
And also like speaking to the character artist, like what reference did they look at? Like what animals were they looking at when they made it?
Yeah.
And that gives a good foundation. Like, okay, this is the path they were going down, so I'm going to look at this stuff as well, and just to try and align both of our ideas.
Yeah, it's always trying to find a comp, right? Like
Yeah,
there's this creature, what is the comparison of something? Like where can I anchor my reference to in a way and then push from that? Yeah, it's cool. So this question from Tom Ivar Arnson, and it says, while it's pretty common knowledge that specialists are more favored than generalists in bigger studios, at what team size does hyper specialization become the only option to score an industry job? So while Ninja Theory is still a relatively small studio, are you already at the point where you will favor a hyper specialist over someone skilled in many disciplines? And do junior positions tend to be more lenient with this?
okay. So it's like basically, do you have to be a total specialist, or is there some value in having generalist skills?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think what I took from it is at what point is that line? Because like he was saying, like the big kind of the bigger studios, where you have, everybody's specialized, right? And then the smaller studios where more generalist. And my take on this question is like where does like Ninja Theory kind of sits in the middle in a way, or obviously you would know, but like where's the line, right? Like, or where the question is
it's such a tough question. Like, I'm not sure.
I guess we could speak about Ninja Theory, because he asked about Ninja Theory. Like, are you at the point, if you're hiring someone, like would you favor a hyper specialist or a a more generalist type? And
Well, I guess, yeah. So would we favor someone who's a generalist over someone who's hyper specialist, or vice versa? I don't think. I guess it depends what you're hiring for and what the requirements of the project are. I don't know. Say if you're hiring a lighting artist, for instance, and is an amazing lighting artist, but he also has other skills. Like, it's great that he has the other skills as well, because it's going to help him become more efficient and more like just more self-enabling. Like, there's more things he can do. But I don't think you would get judged on the fact that you don't have other generalist skills if you're really good in the discipline that you have. And there's no way you would turn down someone who's amazing,
right,
because they don't know how to do these other learn this other discipline.
yeah,
Similarly, yeah. Sorry.
no, sorry, go, keep going.
It's like, similarly, if you're a generalist but you're awesome at everything, great. Like, it's a win-win. Like, it's rarely the case, but it just really comes down to how good you are at the thing that you're applying for.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always. I mean, it's a great question, and it's always a case by case because it's a, you know, you have someone who, let's say, for example, is just like, a combat animation, just pro, just amazing at that. But then you have someone who's good at all different kinds of animation and in some rigging and getting into the engine as well. It's like, I guess it's all based on needs, right? I mean,
Yeah. I think maybe what's more important is that if that person who's amazing at combat, are they willing to learn other things? Like, because those two examples you gave, they could learn from each other, which is great because then both of those people will improve their skill set. So,
yeah. And Tom's initial kind of question is like, he was kind of asking like, at what team size, basically, like what number does specialization become more important than generalist? But like that's also very tough too, because I mean,
34.
Yeah, exactly. 34 and a half, maybe 35.
I mean, I guess like obviously if the team's really small, like then you're going to have to pick up other areas. Like, I think it's just, I mean, it's just the way that it works. Like if you're limited by team size, say if you've got 5 people or 4 people, even like, small, like indie teams, like you have to know other areas because there just simply isn't another person to do one specific job.
Yeah.
Like you can't just be an animator if you're in a team of 5.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have to rig and do this other stuff. It's like in the previous interview you had with Richard Lico, and he was talking about, he was the rigging department and the animation department and everything else. It's like, that's a perfect example, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and just as far as, just as far as like career progression too, right? Like, it's, if somebody, and you see this a lot as people get more seasoned, like if there's a new team ramping up and you need to, you need like 10 people, 10 developers for prototype, it's like, yeah, you're going to go with the animator who is more familiar with a little bit of everything, right? Because I think the worst thing that could happen is that, you're working on a team and you have to pass the buck in a way. You have to be like, oh, well, I can't do that, but this person can, so you should just talk to them. And that's when, that's a good eye opener where it's like, okay, yeah, like that's where I'm potentially being a blocker and I need to kind of like, level myself up there. But yeah, it's always
yeah.
So let's see here. This question is from the questions are coming in and they're really good questions too. So they're
great.
This one's from
best shot.
This one's from Niels. How's it going, Niels? He's tuning in from Sweden. That's pretty cool to hear.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. With so much students graduating these days, what kind of animation makes you stand out from the crowd without having to compete with experienced animators? So.
Good animation.
Yeah. What kind of style? Good style.
Yeah. I have a style which is aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah. It's
I think actually nowadays like really solid. I think just really solid body mechanics, like especially if you want to be in video games, like and animating things that people don't like to animate maybe. I think like reactions and transitions and things like this, like I think if you look at people's reels, everyone kind of wants to show off and do all the fancy stuff, but sometimes some of the more simple animations are like can really help you stand. I mean, because it's more like it's the kind of work you're probably going to be doing, and if you can demonstrate that you can do this already, I think it's already that's a really good quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a nuanced question.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
I don't know. Is that answer sufficient? Like,
yeah, no, that's great. I think I think people always, a kind of common answer to this question is even though it's common, I think it is accurate too, which is like really showing your chops, maybe on the engine side, on the integration side, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah, for sure.
like you have kind of setting yourself apart from even people that are on your level that are applying, which is like
Yeah,
doing the walk, run, and combat and all that stuff like that is great. Showing strong mechanics is great, but then what if you had a little video where you kind of had it running around in the game, right? And you were going for transitioning from walk to run and kind of setting
yeah,
that up. That's to me. I always when I see that, I'm always like, yeah, this person can just jump in
yeah.
and
They
do
could just
this,
they take a seat here, just
Yeah,
go right ahead. There
exactly.
you go.
Exactly. It's
They're fine. Like,
that's
yeah,
and
that would be really impressive actually. Someone showed like like a complete locomotion, like walk run thing where they have an idle, which is nice, and then they transition into a walk and a run, and then they stop, and like it's all like a nice blends really nice and
yeah.
looks cool. It's like, yeah, if you have something like that on your reel, like, and you're trying to get in, that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah. All right. Hope that was helpful, Niels. So the next question is from Nikita. Hey, Nikita. This is
Hey,
says, "Hey, Chris. Thanks for doing the interview. You mentioned
you're
tracing
welcome.
arcs. You mentioned tracing arcs earlier and having that aha moment. I was curious, what
Mhm.
were some of your other struggles as a young animator and how you overcame those problems? If there's anything that pops up for you."
I don't know. I feel like it's a struggle daily, basically.
Yeah.
I still feel like I'm having those aha moments. Uh,
Me too. It's they're always popping up, right? It's
yeah, I think it's healthy to feel like that.
I don't know, yeah. I mean, I think those aha moments happen more frequently maybe when you're starting out, but they still happen. And yeah, it's I mean your tracking
Yeah,
arcs one was that's a good thing where it's just like you were exposed to something other than what you had, the one avenue that you learned, and it was just kind of like this eye-opening moment.
yeah, it's like, wow, I could do it.
Yeah. So if there's anything to take away from that, it's just kind of like breaking out from if you're being mentored or being taught a certain place or whatever, just breaking out and getting other perspectives, because it's essentially kind of feels like what happened with you, whereas like went down another avenue of finding someone to teach and coming across Keith Lango and
Yeah.
just different perspectives, I guess. But
Uh, I think an aha moment in terms of animation was like knowing knowing that like body parts and things kind of like they have like a cause and effect. So like counter movement, for instance, you know, like I just did a critique recently of some work, and I explained this, but like, how in a walk cycle, if you put your left foot forward, your right arm goes forward, but also parts of the body go the opposite way. Like, the left arm's going to go back, and like, the hips rotate clockwise and the torso rotates counterclockwise. And there are always these counter rotations and things going on in the body. And when you're animating, if you try to keep those things in mind, like it really helps you figure out kind of what you need to do. It's like I just have this way of, it's kind of how I break down the mechanics of things. Just remembering like just counter movement, just knowing that, oh, I'm moving something up, so something should probably move down. Or if I'm moving something forward, then something should probably be moving back. And that's usually the reason why my animation looks a bit weird. Or if I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, there's something not quite right. And like, it's kind of like a small tip, but it's something which always goes through my mind. And once I kind of figured that out and digested it and fully understood, like that really helped a lot.
that's a great tip. That's really good. This one's from Nathan Thomas. What's up, Nathan?
Hey, Nathan.
Big fan of your work, Nathan. Like his stuff. He says, "Hey guys, I loved Hellblade. He said, what a cool story and an amazing development team." Not really a question. Just giving you props, actually. says,
Oh,
love the
great.
concept
Thanks.
behind the smaller. He says, love the concept behind the smaller dev teams. That's cool. That's nice. So, this one's from. Let's see. This one's from Nikita. He says, "Oh, I'm sorry. Nikita just said that. Sorry, I asked that already." Sam says, "Congrats on the Hellblade release. What a marvelous game to play this year. What was your source of inspiration when you animated the villain in Senua? Do you shoot reference?"
Yes, I shoot lots of reference. I got very comfortable with that.
I think if anyone hasn't seen your, you posted a talk a few months back, and
the combat animation talk.
Yeah, I can link that in the comments. Sure, people have seen it,
Yeah.
but I can link it. I think you showed a lot of really cool reference in there too. So
Yeah, it's not pretty reference, but it worked.
it's gritty. It's gritty reference.
Yeah, it's functional. Yeah, I use a lot of reference. I guess for Senua, yeah, it's weird. All that stuff's explained in that talk. For Senua in general, I mean, we had our motion capture actress Melina. So for general movement stuff, the style was her. I mean, Senua is like a digital representation of her. Like she's the model. But for combat, yeah, combat stuff, I like to get in there, just grab a plastic sword or something and just start swinging around.
Yeah.
Making a fool of myself. I guess it depends on the character as well. Like if I know he's going to be like a big heavy character with a giant sword, it's like, I'm going to try and recreate what I think it's going to feel like. So yeah, reference is super helpful. And yeah, I'll go on YouTube or just movie references, like anything. But yeah, just whatever pops to mind, I'll just go and have a look. So yeah, I use a lot of reference. It's very important to my workflow.
Nice. And how do you approach reference any different than like anybody else in terms of I know for me, I'd like to shoot two angles because I like to kind of see the kind of front and side
Yeah.
when I'm breaking it down. But yeah, do you kind of just take a camera out there and do your thing?
Yeah, just one camera, like just this small little like portable camera we have. I don't get any other angles. I don't know. I think it's more just of a blueprint. Like I don't copy it one to one or anything. Like it's kind of like blocking. It's my mental blocking stage, and I'll open it up in like the keyframe MP software and kind of throw a few just mark out the key poses and stuff. And it's more just to have a reference of how the mechanics are working.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. This one's from Anar. What's up, Anar?
Hey.
Says, "Hi, I love your work. So much energy and charisma in your animations."
Thanks.
Yeah. How does having more personal control in the engine change your animation workflow?
Oh, it changes it a lot, actually. This is, like I just briefly touched on this earlier. It's like if you know how, say a mechanic is going to be implemented, and you know how it's going to all come, like you kind of use the engine as an animation tool to kind of bind everything together. So for instance, like things like additive animations and using like poses and like kind of like blend spaces and things like this, where you can use a combination of different animation poses that are weighted in different values to kind of give you the end result you want. So what happens is in Maya, rather than I'm trying to think of an example. Yeah, so like for instance, say you've got somebody like like aiming a gun, you'll have like your pose like this, and then you can have a pose where it looks up, and a pose when it looks down, and it's just static. And then you'll have something which blends between these poses, and then you can put like the idle animation on top, and then all these other things, and like you get this like final product which looks like a finished animation, where actually in Maya, rather than animating a guy looking up with the breathing cycle on and all these other things, like you use this layered approach in the engine. So yeah, like it definitely changes the approach, and like it's like putting pieces of this puzzle together. Like it doesn't look very pretty in Maya sometimes, but when it's in the engine and working with all the other elements, then it creates the final look that you're going for. So
Yeah.
it really breaks up what you're doing. Like it's not just a pretty animation in Maya that you've done.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Like just in terms of, it's almost like a mindset shift, right? Where, you know, like someone who maybe isn't familiar with setting it up in the engine, and they were given a task of like your example, like make a bunch of directional aim animations, right? They would maybe create a whole bunch of assets, right? A bunch of animations, but because if someone was familiar with how they could set it up more efficiently in the engine, they would actually save themselves a lot more time potentially. Right.
And get the same result.
Right? Or maybe even a better result, because it's, you know, you're going straight to the source, right? To the engine. And that's great, actually.
Yeah. I mean, and just to elaborate more on that aiming thing. So you would have the aim, and then you would have the recoil animation. So you might have someone which has an aim up, and then they would do an aim up with a shot, and then you'd have an aim down with a shot, and then aim forward with a shot. And it's like, well, you only need one shot animation, and it plays over all the other ones.
Yeah.
And then inevitably you're going to put it in the game, and then they're going to go, we want to change this. And then you've got all these animations to go through and change. And it's like,
yes, exactly. Yeah. No,
so it actually helps you as well with efficiency. Like you can, you know.
That's a great example. Yeah, for sure. This one's from Jalen. What's up, Jalen?
Hey, Jalen.
This says, should game animators learn facial animation?
Why not?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it doesn't hurt to have that skill. I mean, you're probably not going to do I don't know. I guess it really depends. It depends on the project. I don't know. What do you think about this, Jason?
I feel like the same, where it's just like, why not? You know, like I think it really depends on what you're working on, right? And I think as animators, you're always trying to, at least for me, like I'm always trying to attack my weaknesses, right? So, I am, you know, if you're not as strong as, you know, I'm not like a super strong facial animator. Done it in the past, but you know, if I wanted to get like, that's something, like if I had extra time, you know, if I was like, hey, I want to focus on getting better at a certain thing, I would try to get better at the thing that I'm lacking at, right? Which is like, so I think, you know, and just to get in the mindset of like never being, I don't know if deficient is the right word, but just, we kind of talked about being a blocker in the past, right? You know, before, where it's like, you don't want to be a creative blocker in a way, which is like, oh, like this person, like, oh, we could give it to Jason, but you know, he's not that great of a facial animator, so let's give it to somebody else. Like you want to be able to do it, right? So
it's like another tool in your tool belt. Like, you know, it's like, oh, for this task, well, yeah, I can do some facial animation. Cool. Well, you know, you can, I guess it gives you the confidence then to approach like pretty much anything. You don't know that, oh, wow, like I can't do facial animation whatsoever. And then you just constantly avoid it.
Yeah. And that exactly, like the avoidance thing, where it's just like, you know, if you were given a set of animations and you have to divvy them up between like 3 animators or something, it's like people sometimes tend to go for their strengths, which is great, or tend to go for the things that they like or whatever. And it's like, you know, true. What if you were the person that was, you know, taking on the things that other people had a hard time, like the close-up shot, or like, you know, like, you know, the kind of transition thing. And it's like, oh, like, you know, just kind of, you know, just being proficient in a lot of things. So, and then another thing is just, which is like, you you could be working on, kind of a top-down game where every character is very small and not really seeing anything, and all of a sudden the next game you're working on is like, this everything is like, quick time events, and it's like a lot of dialogue pieces, and the faces are close up, and it's like, you want to be, because if you're flexible, then you're employable, and you get to do a lot of different things, and so yeah, I guess that's the long answer. The short answer is yes, but
Yes, learn facial animation.
yeah,
Why not?
yeah.
Why not?
I think if you were, maybe approaching it from a student point of view, maybe if you were trying to learn many different things, and you needed to like get better at a lot of different things, is facial animation on the top of the pile? Maybe not. Obviously body mechanics is still, you want to get there, but
Yeah.
that's what makes this whole thing so hard, is that we're constantly learning. So
Yeah, I was going to say, like, as a game animator, like, body mechanics and things like that should be priority. Like, I mean, a lot of the times you don't see the face in the game. Like,
Yeah.
if you're really good at facial animation, and it's like, oh, well, actually the camera's now like way out here, like in a top-down view, then okay, well, you can't see the face, so you're gonna be focusing on body mechanics.
yeah.
So, yeah, I would definitely prioritize that over facial animation. But yeah, why not learn facial animation as well?
That's this one's from Andrew Tan. Hey, Andrew.
Hey,
It's he says, "Hey Chris, can you tell us a story about your greatest failure in animation or in the industry, and how did you overcome it?"
that's a tough question.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Greatest failure.
We can think on that and hit something else if you want, but
Yeah,
and
like,
come back to it.
really.
Yeah, let's.
It's not that I'm succeeding constantly. I mean, there are little failures. I mean, what by failures, I mean, there are things that don't always go right, but you learn from the experience, I guess. And it's nothing really as like something I did that was catastrophic, that I would recommend that you avoid.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll think on it.
Yeah. That's here's another one from Niels. He says, "Do you work with multiple people in the same character? And if so, how do you keep the animation consistent?"
Yes,
That's a good question.
we do. Yeah. Yeah, I think on almost every game I've worked on, like, so DMC, for instance, Dante's got a wide variety of things that he can do. Like, he's got, he can run around the world. He's got combat, and then different combat sets within his combat set. So, he's got his basic set, and then there's like, when you've unlocked additional moves, and then he's got like his angel, is it demon pull and angel lift thing. Like, so an animator might focus on one section. So for me on DMC, I did a lot of the pulling mechanics and the gliding mechanics and things like this, where in parallel someone will be developing the combat side, and then in parallel someone will be developing maybe the guns, like the shooting. So, and then generally, I guess to keep that consistent, I mean, you have someone, I guess, whose principal or something, whose role is just to like kind of keep an eye on things. And I think when you're all working on the same character, you all kind of get a feel over time as to what looks right, and know when you're breaking the character. And it's something which kind of goes by feel. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a challenge, right? Keeping the style in line, and that's a good question though. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
This one's from Arturo. Hey, Arturo.
Hey, Arturo.
You have a lot of cinematic pieces on your reel. What do you enjoy more to animate, gameplay or cinematics?
Yes, but all of them. No, I think, yeah. So my DMC reel here is basically, so it's all cinematic stuff. So I mean, I like doing that kind of thing. I like story set pieces and things like that. Um, but I love the gameplay side of things. It's really satisfying to really put a character together and then you play them and they feel a certain way and like they're alive, but you're fully in control of them. Like that's really satisfying to me. I like them both. It's nice to mix it up and do both actually. Like so here on DMC in all this work which is on the screen now, we were just like helping out the cinematics team and doing like these gameplay. These are like gameplay cutscenes where sometimes you'll have a small section which isn't like a full-blown cinematic with like mocap actors, but the characters still need to do something in order to progress the story like a little bit or to bring you to the next section of the level or things like that. So we would often do these. So we learned how to do cameras and, and like cinematic flow. And I just think the cinematic stuff looks really cool. It's nice to work on. It's like you're working on a movie. You can control exactly where the camera is and framing, and you can make it exciting, and it's great. It's a totally different challenge. But yeah, I mean, I like them both.
For these cinematics, like, would the animators have to do the cameras, or was there like a kind of
Yeah, with everything, like the pacing, cameras.
Yeah, it's great. Like, it's very high energy. Love it. So let's see here. Here's Nathan is asking. He goes, "Love the creature work from Hellblade. What did you use for ref?"
Thanks.
I guess you kind of touched a little bit, but like, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, this guy, the Valraven, is basically me. I just shot reference of myself, and I also freestyle animated it because I can't do that move there. Not any of the big jumpy. Yeah, I mean, I'm not very acrobatic, and I can't do that either. So yeah, I mean, just reference, and I'll sometimes just try things out or just look. I can't think of anything specific.
Mm-hmm. When you're doing something like this, obviously it's hard to find exact reference of this, but I guess when you're kind of like, I mean, maybe a lot of people might want to know this in terms of like this creature stuff. Like, how do you kind of generally approach like a shot like this? Is it kind of like, oh, like, in simplest terms, it's a combat animation. It's like a lunging attack, and I'm gonna break down my antic and hit poses and all that stuff like that, except it's a quadruped? Or do you kind of approach things differently because it is a quadruped?
I approach it the same. I approach it the same way. I think the most important thing is it's hitting the design requirements. Like, so this is a leap attack. So obviously he had to, in the game, he's kind of, he's in the darkness and you can't see him, and he leaps out into the middle of the arena. So it's like, the requirements were that he had to just leap out, and he kind of had this amount of time, and he needs to hit just like slam the floor and have like some reasonable recovery so you can punish him. And so that already kind of dictates what the attack's going to be. So I know that, okay, he needs to leap out to cover this much distance in this much time. So I already have my framework, and then from that I'll just maybe just try things out. I think with that I just went in and just did a few key poses and tried to get something functional working, just a really rough block out. And then I would hide his arms and legs, and I just focus on the mass of the character, like the whole torso, body, and get that working. I find that works well for me for quadrupeds. Like, if I can just hide the limbs and get the torso and everything working well, and get that feeling heavy, and well, in this case, like really heavy and weighty, then the rest kind of just fills itself in. It's a very layered approach. So yeah, that's what I would do usually.
Okay, yeah, nice. This I missed this one before, but Steve asks, Ninja Theory is very combat oriented, and you mentioned that you got into combat very heavily when you were there. But like, what were your interests prior to that? Like, what were you?
Um, it's funny actually because when I applied to games, I kind of, I also kind of wanted to work in movies. I think I just wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I think I was just glad for the opportunity. Excuse me. I don't know.
Yeah, you're just kind of just shooting for anything,
Yeah,
really, right? Yeah.
well, kind of, but also something. I guess I wanted something which was quite high end, like uh, not realistic, but like don't know how to explain. It's almost like movie. This is almost like movie quality work that you're what you're doing. If that makes sense. I want
Hmm.
something where I could grow, where I know that it's. I mean, it looks awesome. Like animating creatures and things. I think creatures have always appealed to me. Like doing monsters and things like that, just because they're cool and you get to kind of invent
Yeah, yeah.
a movement style for something which doesn't exist,
Hmm.
and it's a nice challenge. Yeah, I've always been interested in creatures, I think, and this kind of work,
Cool.
which probably stems, yeah, from watching Jurassic Park and being like, wow, let's make dinosaurs.
Um, I'm realizing I did miss a few questions here. So Niels says if you're we're talking internships, right? He says if your dream company doesn't offer internships, what is the best way of getting in?
Good question.
I guess if let's say Ninja Theory didn't offer an internship, how'd you have done it if you're like had your goals set on it?
I don't know. Like back then, I don't know, but
Yeah.
now I know what I would do. So
What would you do now?
I guess when people are looking to hire for positions, they kind of want to know that you're going to fit in the company and the style of the company. So if you can make work, if you could put work on your reel where a company can see it and go, oh, that would totally fit with what we're doing. And what I mean by that is like, say if, I don't know, say if you wanted to work on, I don't know, like Battlefield or something, or Call of Duty, but your reel is just full of, it might be really good work, but like something super stylized. Um, it seems like a big jump, like a big contrast, and you might. Um, I guess it's the same as like having a reel which is all acting. And it might be really good acting and things like that, but it might be quite stylized at the same time. But you're applying for a position where it's all going to be motion capture or something, and it's super realistic looking, and like the polar opposite. Like it might not be a good option. Like I would try to put work on my reel which the company is already doing. I think things which are just going to fit right in, and try and show them like, hey, look, I can kind of do what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like hire me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No.
I think that seems like a pretty sensible strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be my answer too. Basically, like put work on your reel that the company could just drop into the game.
Yeah,
Ideally, right? If they looked at your reel like, oh, that could totally go in our game, or in a best case scenario, that move works better for our game than the one we have. It's like we could just
yeah,
drop that one in and yeah, just creating animation that and obviously a lot of people do it, so it's like that like you said, that's a sensible strategy. I think it's like it's always kind of a interesting there's always news press releases and stuff like that in terms of what people studios are doing. So it's like if I didn't know this maybe I didn't necessarily know this at the time, but in hindsight, like if you were trying to get into a studio that you wanted to get into, maybe you should try to find out what they're you know like maybe they just made an announcement for something that they're going to do, or maybe you already know that
yeah,
you like they have a successful game, they're probably going to make a sequel, right, or something like that. It's like you try to like not just do what they're doing, but if you can do what they're gonna do in a way. So like, if you heard that they're gonna be working on a particular genre or something like that, it's like and it really is a dream studio where you could take time to make stuff like that. Then you make stuff that would appeal to like just what they're looking for at that time. So
yeah, definitely. So as an example, I guess like if you wanted to work at like I guess Sony Santa Monica or something who are doing God of War, like you should do like combat stuff and like like try and do some like quick time event looking things like this action. Like you want to show that's the game they're making. It's like you want to show them that you can do that. So that should be the kind of work you should send. But then don't send that work to one which is going to be purely like acting or facial animation or something. Like do something different. Like it's just tailoring it, I guess, to the different studio.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know if I would necessarily recommend this, but like I have seen kind of like fan work out before. Like
oh really?
Yeah, we had like, maybe this is just for certain companies, but like we've when I was working at Riot, we had an animator who basically took like the map of the game and put the characters running in the map, and
nice.
like one killing another kind of thing. And it was just like it was almost like a short film in a way. And it was just like, well, this person, hit the style. This person is obviously very passionate, about it. And so it catches the eye of people. People start passing around, and it's, it's how you remember names, I guess. But yeah, I don't know.
Oh yeah. Definitely. Like, I've seen things go around like fan work. I think it was an Overwatch one where there was it was like a tracer, like a stylized kind of short, is it like chibi or something, like a Japanese kind of, when they make the characters small with heads. There's it was a tracer, and she's just shooting this robot and jumping around and stuff, and like with some free rigs on the internet, and like that. I'm sure everyone at the animation team at Blizzard and stuff saw that. Like, it got shared around a lot. Like that was fan work, and they kind of recreated the character really well. So that definitely got them some attention. That got some attention.
Yeah, that can totally work. So, let's see here. This one's from Steve here. So he said, one of my mentors for feature animation has suggested exploring fight animation. It shows how this skill can work over games, film, and VFX. I can see the sense in this with the exchanging of motivational forces. What advice would you give to begin exploring this type of animation? You mentioned you played with several rigs at once in exercises, but in hindsight, what would you advise? I guess just getting into like fight animation or combat animation, and if you've never done it before, basically.
I mean, I guess start small, like just doing it, like just animate a single attack. Like, I mean, look at other games and stuff for reference. Try and have a look at what they're doing, and start small, do an attack, or maybe do like a simple like 3-hit combo, or I don't know, simple. I just try and I think because it's really important to kind of get the mechanics down in these things. I don't know, just give it a shot and use tons of reference.
References. I think whatever the reference is, like I think I guess I'm kind of an advocate of like copying stuff if you're not going to like put it on your reel or like pass it off as your own original work, like just as an exercise, like something that you really like a great combat animation that you saw, and just kind of like frame by frame through it and like really find those cool poses, and it's like life drawing in a way, like maybe copy the pose and see how they did it in a way, and then you can kind of like you can understand and break it down a bit more, right? And kind of like what you were saying before, like you just got to do it, as opposed to just like, you could read all day about combat animation or anything really, but you you got to get your hands dirty and yeah.
I guess the stuff which is more difficult to learn is like it's not just looking at a bunch of attacks. I mean, you can look at attacks and think, oh, that looks awesome, and kind of recreate it and self-study, which is definitely beneficial. But like understanding why they did it is a much more difficult question, and that's something which is a bit more difficult to answer. It's like why is the strike so quick, and why is the end so, like I was saying before about removing the anticipation, or having little anticipation, and building it into the end of the attack to kind of show what happened. Like it's very exaggerated. Like, you know, in real life, you know, attacks don't really look like that. You know, they're probably a lot slower and less impressive.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, just give it a shot.
Yeah, and just kind of knowing that, like, just with anything you do, first time's not so great, second time's a little better, third time's a little, you know, like I do that to myself something too, where I'm like, I have to, like, I feel like I have to nail it on the first time of doing something, and that's just not realistic, you know. It's like, like, just be like, this is throwaway, like this is practice, you know. So I think sometimes people can get kind of, and this is not talking about Steve's question, this is just kind of like talking about something else, which is like people, you know, want to do something, and like we were talking about facial animation, right? Like, I got to do facial animation. It's like, well, because of time restraints or something like that, maybe somebody would be like, I'm going to do this facial animation, and because I need a facial animation piece for my reel, and that's almost like setting yourself up for failure. And sometimes, because if you haven't done it before, but you need to make it for your reel, it's like that's a tough position to be in. So yeah, just kind of like, you know, do one that's throwaway, take the pressure off yourself, and then kind of like go again, kind of thing.
That was the whole, like, I need a facial animation piece for my reel, so it's the first facial animation piece they've ever done to put on their reel.
Exactly. Yeah. I find that with students sometimes, where it's like, okay, yeah, like, I mean, I'm not walking in their shoes, I don't know what their time restraints are like, but it's a tough position if you're not getting some practice in. Did I ask this already? It says, Niels asked, should you put mocap work on your reel? And you know, that's the question. So
I guess, I mean, this again refers to the question we were just talking about. Is it relevant to the studio you're applying to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, then if it is, then yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. It's all context, right? It's like, yes, you should if you're applying to a mocap heavy studio, for sure. And you know, like, people always say, like, put on your reel what you want to do versus you know, like, sometimes people, that's all they have maybe is something that they don't like doing. And I'm not necessarily talking about mocap, I'm just talking about whatever, like any kind of animation is like, this is all I have, but I don't really want to do it, but I'm going to keep putting out. You're only going to get back what you put in, like, you know, you're going to get the calls back from what you're showing. So, you know, should you put mocap on your reels? Like, well, I guess the question back is like, do you like doing mocap, right? It's like, should I put combat animation on my reel? It's like, well, do you like doing combat? Because then it's like, okay, yes, you know, if you do, great, put on your reel, and that's the kind of responses you might get from the reel. So
I think it's important. There's really no one size fits all demo reel. I don't think you can't. Just there isn't one which covers everything. It would be impossible to cover everything. Yeah,
exactly. And Niels was asking, is Animbreak still going? Been out of the loop? Maybe you're referring to like the animation challenges. I think I'll try to. I don't know. I might start them up in the new year. We'll see. We'll see if that's how it goes. But
I say yes.
All right. This one's from Francisca Marquardt, and she says, "Hello from Montreal." Nice. We got some Canada in the house.
I bet it's cold there.
I grew up in Central Canada. It's the Winters are long. That's for
Yeah, I
sure.
mean it's cold here, and
Is it?
it's not not even close to the same level, I guess, as
Yeah,
Canada. So
no. There's cold and then Canada cold. Yeah.
yeah.
She says, "Hello from Montreal. I was wondering how much do you animate in your spare time after already sitting at a computer for 8 hours a day, and if so, how do you keep yourself motivated? Is it better to show personal work on a okay?" So that's the first part of the question. The second part is it better to show personal work on a demo reel rather than just professional work?
Yeah. So I'll answer the first part, which was whether I animate in my spare time. And actually, I don't do a lot of animation outside. And I think this is quite it seems to be an unpopular thing. And what I mean by that is like, I always had the impression that like, you should be like, you need to love animation. You need to be animating all the time. When you get home, you should have a personal project. I mean, it's cool to have a personal project to work on, but I always felt that I was fulfilled at the office. I kind of spent all day doing the work that I want to do. So I really had no need for another outlet. Now, if maybe you're on a project that it's not really what you want to do, but you don't mind it. Like, okay, say for instance, you're working on a very, I don't know, say you were working on a very realistic game, and actually you really like stylized stuff, and you never get a chance to do it. So then, you might express that creativity at home by just, it's just creating another outlet for it. If you have something that you need to create an outlet for, like you really want to do something, but you're just not getting it anywhere else, then I would animate at home. But generally, like, I just don't really feel the need to. Yeah, I guess that's my answer to that.
And what
How about you, Jason?
Me, yeah. I mean, I've been there many times where I wanted to do stuff outside of work, and it's just hard, and so you come home and it's an 8 hour workday, but in reality it's more like 9 or 10 hours because lunch and commute and all that stuff like that. So you've kind of been on your feet for 10, 11 hours by that point, and binge watching something or playing games sounds so good at that moment, but I think keeping myself motivated is secondary to keeping myself disciplined, if that makes sense. So motivation is fleeting for me personally, and some days I'm motivated, some days I'm not. So I try to mentally like take motivation out of it and just stay disciplined, whether I feel like it or not. I'm going to.
Discipline beats motivation, definitely.
Yeah, discipline. It's like if you just keep yourself. It's hard, it's easy to say, hard to do, but it's like, I think giving yourself a deadline is nice, and biting off small chunks is always nice, right? So like, not necessarily keeping yourself motivated by like being like, oh, I'm motivated to do this, but like more like, you're at work. How do you get your stuff done at work? Well, I mean, you generally, whether somebody has you on a schedule, you keep yourself on a schedule. There's a schedule, right? And I think a lot of times, at least for me, when I come home, I throw the schedule side out the window, but having a schedule at home can help you a lot too, where you're like, hey, like my goal is to be first pass by the end of next week or something like that. And, that's just like one sentence, but like, how are you going to get the first pass by the end of next week? Well, I want to get I want to get to frame 100 by the end of this week, or I want to get, my body working nicely by Sunday, like really kind of giving yourself little goals, right? And seeing if you can, try to hit them. And, there's no sugarcoating it. Obviously it's hard. It's like, how I got into a lot of, because I've done different styles of games and stuff like that. So like my reel would always be the style of the game that I worked on. But if I wanted to try a different style, it was always really difficult for me. And the only way for me to even get the attention of a studio that's doing a different style was to do my own personal work, right?
Yeah.
So, you know,
Exactly.
I had absolutely, I was coming off the Order 1886 like 3 years
Yeah.
ago, super realistic,
Yeah, I
you
saw
know,
that stuff. Yeah.
yeah, tons of mocap, just like really
Yeah.
high fidelity type realistic stuff, and you know, I wanted to try out Riot, and but I didn't have anything of that style, right? And you know, my mistake was thinking that I could submit that reel and say, oh, they're gonna see that it's decent animation, and they'll just give me a test, and I'll knock out the test in that style, right? But it doesn't really work that way. They you know, they need to see,
Yeah.
you know, they need to see what you can do before you can kind of like progress to the test. So you know, to Francisca's question, it's like I spent many hours after work working on like 3 to 4 little kind of like stylistic pieces, and that eventually got me noticed.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was just like, you know, it was a grind, right? But
Yeah. I bet.
I find if you really like, this is turning into a longer question or a longer answer, but I find if you look at how you're spending your day, it's really interesting, because like if you're just like, hey, like I'm going to eliminate Netflix for 1 month, you know, you would maybe gain yourself like, I don't know, like 5 or 10 hours a week, right? And all of a sudden it's like, what could you animate in 5 or 10 hours? You could animate quite a bit, you know, and all of a sudden you multiply that by 4 weeks, and you've got yourself like a piece or two on a reel. And you know, all you did was sacrifice, you know, that 5 or 10 hours doing whatever it is. But yeah, you know, it's hard. Everyone's got their own situation, but that's just
Look,
my take on it. So
don't watch like 25 hours of House of Cards and just animate instead. Then
yeah, exactly.
you'll get there.
Yeah. Or, you know, just animate with House of Cards on the side. I don't know.
It's great. Like what you just said actually really fits well in with the previous question of like, what should I put on my reel for certain studios? Like you literally just did. Like you've exercised that like properly. Like you created animation specifically to go to Riot.
Mm-hmm.
Like so. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally
it's just
validates that answer.
Yeah, sure. And Francisco says not too cold yet, so not too cold yet.
It's coming.
All right, so man, we've been hitting these questions hard. So I want to thank you for your time, but we could maybe we'll do like 2 more questions. How's that sound, Chris?
Yeah, I'm good. Like,
all right. We're just rolling through these, and we're getting some, like, I really appreciate it. These are great questions, everyone.
Yeah, they're awesome.
This one's from Liam. He says, hey, Chris and Jason. What's up, Liam? Says,
hey, Liam.
Awesome combat work on Hellblade. What's your method for coming up with attack choreography or ideas for your animations?
Again, this is based on a previous answer, but it initially kind of comes down to the design requirements. So often I'll have like a task which is like, oh, we need a 4-hit combo. The first one needs to be pretty quick, and the third one needs to hit a 360 arc, and then the last one needs to create a knockback. Like you need to knock the enemy back or something. So okay, cool. I have these requirements. What choices can I make which will cover the design requirements but also look cool and fit the character? So I already have like my basis and then I'll just, depending on the character or if anything pops to mind, first thing I do is just grab the camera, just go into, you know, a meeting room or something and just shoot reference and try and find out like the flow of things and what kind of feels right. And I'll just generally do that. Unless it's something that I can't do, then I'll go onto YouTube. But I'm already thinking about what might look cool. And then I guess when I've done my first pass and tried it out in the game, then I can assess actually if it's working or not. Maybe I need to change some choices. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know. I don't really know right away if I've made the right choice until I've seen it in the engine. But yeah, that's usually my approach.
Okay. And do you get like how heavy of the design side of kind of the collaboration is there in terms of like, they're like, hey, this particular one needs to be a knockback and stuff like that. Like, does it ever get into the area of somebody being like, oh, I was thinking it was going to be like this, and then you spin and do this, or is there that kind of collaboration, or are you just kind of left to be like, okay, this is the requirements, and you kind of fill in the holes with?
Yeah, there's definitely back and forth. I mean, I'll ask them sometimes, like a designer, like what did they expect to see, and I try to plus it. Because sometimes if you do something and it's kind of not what they expect, then you're kind of going in the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. But if it's better than they expected, then you're kind of doing the right thing. I've also been very fortunate where designers have been very hands-on, so they can, like in UE4, like they can chop up animations and kind of stick them together, and kind of then we can have a rough representation in the engine working already before I've even made a single keyframe.
Oh, that's cool.
And they can go, oh, something kind of like this with these rough timings, but like there's a lot of room to play around with it. So I already know what they're thinking, and there's something working. So there's that collaboration. Like we collaborate in that way. There's a lot of back and forth, which is, I think it's probably quite rare, but it's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. It's like super proactive from a design standpoint, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So one more question, last question here. So this is from Michael Cuevas. What's up, Cuevas?
Hey, Michael.
Says, hey, Chris, and you kind of talked a little bit about this before maybe, but you said, do you have any interest in other aspects of game dev, and do you dabble in them, like modeling, rigging, etc.?
In the artistic side, like not really. I mean, I'm always pushing my technical side, like the technical knowledge, and like I was stressing the importance of learning the engine earlier. Like I'm always trying to find more efficient ways to create the same results. So like, I've enjoyed becoming a little bit more technical. So, I mean, yeah, I'm interested in that, which then goes down the path of, you start to learn a little bit of coding knowledge and things like this, and you start dabbling. I'd quite like to learn how to like animate VFX or something.
Yeah.
Like, I think that'd be pretty cool. Like you start adding them to your animations and stuff as like placeholder. So yeah, other than that, like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not really interested in learning how to model. Rigging, I'd quite like to learn, and I've put in some time, like a little bit of time, like on occasion. I also feel like it's something that I should learn. Like, I know, like, because I think it can only be beneficial if I need to change something, or I can explain then to a rigger exactly what I need, and I can demonstrate, like, hey, the control like this, it does this. So having a good understanding of these areas will really help.
For sure. Were you like this? I tend to get this question from people in terms of like being more technical. Like if you're not, if that's not something you were kind of used to being or doing, how do you kind of like dive into that, that aspect of it? Because it can be for creators and stuff like that. It can be a little more daunting looking at the technical side sometimes.
So just how to approach it. I think the thing is, like, with a lot of engines like Unity and the Unreal Engine, like they're really accessible. Like they're quite artist friendly, and you can get a long way with a little bit of knowledge.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, like I said before, like really just get in there, go through some of the Unreal stuff. There's a lot of great tutorials online on YouTube. Like they're really easy to follow. Just go in there and try and make like a walk run network or something. Like everything's there. You can get really far by yourself. So just dive in, find some tutorials, and just see how it goes.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, yeah. So we'll call it from there. But this has been awesome. Like, great questions by everyone, and great answers, Chris. Great to hear from you. And
Thanks. Yeah, the questions have been amazing.
yeah, this is it's good stuff. So before we get out of here, do you have anything that you know? What are you up to these days? You have anything to plug in terms of maybe where we could find you and all that stuff?
Yeah, nothing really to plug. I mean, if you want to find me and see what I'm up to next, I'm quite active on Twitter, so it's at CGMation. My website is cgmation.net. Everything is at CGMation. So recently I started trying to stream on Twitch. So if you want to watch some live critiques at some point, just jump on there, follow me. I'll update when I'm going to do something. But yeah, that's the best way to kind of keep in touch with what I'm up to.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
And also to contact me as well. So
cool. Yeah, it's I used to do these critiques through here too, and I'll probably get back into it. I should have you back on. We'll critique some stuff together.
Joint critiques.
Yeah. Group. It'll be like a daily session.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and thanks again, Chris, for taking the time to do this.
That's been great.
It.
Thanks for watching. I just hope I've managed to provide some useful things.
No, for sure. All right, everyone. Until next time, take care.
All right, thanks. Bye.